Alright, what's up YouTube? I'm back. It rained yesterday, and it probably will rain again tonight or tomorrow. Alright, now I promised you guys that YouTube video. I promised y'all I was going to talk about, um, bear with me, I try to make it 7. I know there's one video game that I used to play that I can't think of. So it's going to be called Sex Game, the top 6 video games that should be made into television or film. So not all of them have to be television. Not all of them have to be movies. Not all of them have to be movies. Some of them can be television shows. So I picked by far the best video games that I know everybody plays. You'd be surprised what gets number 1. Alright, so starting at number 6 is Siphon Filter. Now I've played every badass video game of Siphon Filter. I played the first one, which is about Gabriel Logan working for the CIA as an undercover agent on ops, who is kind of like a James Bond type of character. Like it's like, what if you took Mission Impossible and James Bond and you fused them in together, you know? And I think you could actually make a 3-arc movie. You could make 3 movies of Siphon Filter. The reason why I say you could make it like a cross between Mission Impossible and James Bond is because we got the technology, we have the actors that can resemble these characters, and if you look at Siphon Filter, that kind of like is another version of James Bond. I mean, think about it. In every James Bond movie, the guy's got to be in his mid to late 30s. And look at Gabriel Logan, right? So you could make 3 movies. The first film can be about he was in the military and then he became an undercover agent working for the government. You can make the second film like 3 years later, he's in his prime and he fights another person that's just like him. And in the third movie, you can make it where someone from his past has come back to take him on. 3 movies. You don't have to make a Siphon Filter 4 or Siphon Filter 5 or 6. You know, you start off with just 3 movies. If the first one's good, then you make a second one. If the second one's better than the first one, then you guarantee everybody a third film. That's if you're going to make it 3 movies right off the bat. If you're not going to go the movie route, television would be better for Siphon Filter. Gives the audience a chance to either accept Siphon Filter than rather than make the mistake of, okay, let's make it into 3 movies and then nobody likes the 3 movies. Something like this was done before in the 1990s and early 2000s. Like if you look at Mortal Kombat, right? People love the video games that they made 2 films and then they made a television series. Now, the TV show didn't grab as much interest as the first film did. So you probably might go with a television approach with Siphon Filter. You know, you can give it about 5 seasons to be on the safe side, 5. You know, you don't have to, try to turn it into the Walking Dead concept where it needs 10 seasons. You give Siphon Filter like 5 seasons. You don't want to stretch the story out. Like if you make it where he's young and this is before he becomes the guy in the video games, that might be helpful before you jump off and make 3 movies. So I'm just saying, coming in at number 5, so number 6 is Siphon Filter. Coming in at number 5 is Dracula's Castlevala. Now, the problem with Dracula, the mythology, the legend of the vampire, is that people don't know which version they get on television or on film. They don't know if he's Dracula Vampire Legend. They don't know if he's the legendary Valdemar the Impaler. You see, you gotta create a story where people know who Dracula is from beginning, middle, and end. And to me, they did it in the right step when they went with the television concept, but it got canceled. And then they tried to turn around and make a movie, and again they failed because you didn't give anyone a chance to accept him as a television character, and then you try to move him back to being a movie character, and that's where the audience just got fed up. What you need to do is decide who... Dracula's like Superman. You have to treat the character with lots of credit and a lot of respect. You want Dracula to be on the same level as these characters, you got to treat him better than how he's been treated. Prime example is when they made 3 movies of Dracula in the 2000s. He got a trilogy. The first film was okay. The second film was better than the first film, and the third film nobody really liked. So Castlevania provides how you make Dracula Dracula. See, the one thing that they should do, but they never do in television and film with his character, is explain more of his powers. And there's a vampire that came before him. Like there's a girl and then there's a guy. But then, what if you just took the story of Castlevania? He still would be a vampire. He would still be the vampire of legend. But what about the vampire that comes after Dracula? This would be the first time you can make it where he's not really a good guy, but he's a bad guy. So the first movie should be like 2 hours and 20 minutes. You give us almost a 3 hour movie, like the Avengers film, right? The Marvel movies. That's how Dracula should be done. You make it where he's very scary, very intimidating, very terrifying, and not to try to go the X-Men Wolverine route, but you could make it where he falls in love with the wrong woman, gets bit by a vampire, meets another vampire, gets more additional powers, and then you can make it where he becomes king of Castlevania. Someone is jealous of his new rise to claim as a vampire, decides to go to the same person that made him into a vampire. They get rejected. They go to the guy, they get rejected, and then the guy tries to create his own serum to make himself into a vampire. And this will then create a challenge for Dracula because he's not the only vampire out there doing the same things with his powers and capabilities. And then you can make it where it's two vampires fighting for the title of Dracula. That makes the story much interesting. The second story can be he's in the modern time period. It's centuries later, and you can have him in New Orleans or New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, and you can have it where he's fighting the same person but they're reincarnated. And what you should do is make it where he lost his memory. Him always having to remember stuff gets boring. Like if you make it where he thinks he's human and he doesn't know that he's still an immortal vampire, you make the story interesting. Because now audience have a reason to take the lore of the vampire legend serious. The third film is where you start having him fight other monsters. Like he thinks he's the only vampire. Here comes Adam, Frankenstein's monster. Then you can have him fight that person. Or if you go with a television show concept, it might be better because you can get 5 seasons out of it. The first season could just be him learning how to control his powers. Season 2 can be him learning that there's other people like him. The third season is where he takes on his most dangerous adversary. The fourth season is where he's now in modern times. And the fifth season can just be to end the television show to where he now knows he's the legend. So if you don't go with the movie route, television route. Coming in at number 4 is Devil May Cry. Now, I've played the video game. I played all the video games, the crossovers, read the comics, the graphic novels, the posters. You could do a lot with Devil May Cry. You could actually break Devil May Cry in half. You could make it a television show and a movie because you have so much story and so much material for the character Dante. Like, you can go, like, the television show could be like 3 or 4 seasons. You can make it where he's young, he's in high school, he's told not to use none of his powers. His mother tells him and his brother, don't be using your powers. You don't want the rest of the world to find out. You're half human, half demon hybrid. And you could actually make the television show where he runs into other people with supernatural powers. And he would be forced to fight them. And then, towards the end of the third or fourth season of the show, it goes into the movie. Where, okay, you make the television show have it where he's having flashbacks to when he was a kid. And then the movies is he's like in his late 20s, early 30s, and he's been doing this for 10 years. So now you can go the Blade route. Where in Blade, they kind of went back to the past and showed the stuff he done before he knew he was the Daywalker. You could do that with Dante. Half of it could be a television show, half could be a movie. That way, audience don't get tired of the character of Dante. The TV show could be whatever you want the show to be, where the movies is actually the core of the characters. This could be another big franchise. This could not only make video games movies taken serious, you would be surprised on what you can do with these characters. Alright, coming in at number 3, God of War. I've played the first game, the second game, the third game. I never played the fourth one. I found out they made an animated movie. Gotta watch it. And this would be good. Warner Brothers could make this. Universal could make this. Anyone, any film studios in the world could make this God of War. I mean, just look at the story of Hercules, Clash of the Titans, 300. You could go back to that same time frame, and the idea that Zeus has another child out there that's half human and half divine. You could play around with that mythology. You know, Kronos has a brother who's chosen. He's not. You know, Ares comes down, takes his brother away, and you could you could kind of give it that Clash of the Titans feel, where Zeus finds out he's another one of his children, and you could build up the story where it's him not only mad at the father Zeus, but he has to fight the gods as well as his enemies. And that movie, you could just make a full blown 2 hours and 10 minutes. You know, that would just be one film. You wouldn't have to really make a sequel unless audiences accept it. I'm pretty sure people would love God of War. I mean, if you could make Hercules, Clash of the Titans, and the 300 films, you can make God of War. It's not that hard. Just put them in the same Greek mythology timepiece. You know, you can have the same elements. Zeus came down as an eagle or as a turtle or something and mate with a woman, and that's how Kronos was born. And then he finds out he's the son of Zeus, just like Hercules. And you can have that same dynamics where he's like Hercules. He doesn't fully accept the fact that his father abandoned him and that his father's the king of the gods. You could play around with that mythology. I mean, of course, you can also have it where he finds out he has these powers and he uses them to fight evil, but he still hasn't fully accepted the fact that he was abandoned. You could play with those dynamics. What'd be perfect is you could have a commercial that says the father Zeus, the brother of Kronos, and then the third commercial can have Kronos, and you would be able to launch this. Now, if you try to make this into 3 movies, the thing is, you got to be careful because the first movie got to set up how he finds out who he is. The second movie would just be a continuation where Hercules did 12 labors, right? So the second story would have to be he becomes the second person successful to do 12 labors. So I could see you could just make this into 2 movies, a part 1 and a part 2. You wouldn't have to necessarily make a part 3, because if you did, then you would probably be making it about something else. And you don't want audiences to get upset if you change the character up too much. Unless you make it to where he becomes a god, and that wouldn't be too fun because then there would be nothing left to explore with his character. Alright, coming in at number 2, Metal Gear Solid. Now, my best friend loves the video games. I've played 1 and 2 and 3. I've never played 4 and 5. The idea that you could have a military scientist, as in Big Boss, make a clone, and then it turns out to be Snake, and then Snake finds out he has all these incredible capabilities in the military. You could make it where he thinks he's born like that, and he kind of finds out that the main villain is actually his father, and that this is something he struggles with his humanity. And guess what? You have an interesting story now, because now it's a clone realizing that he's a clone of a bad person, and he finds good through that. And of course, you make a part 2 if the first one's good. And then, to me, with this one, I would say you probably go with the movie route first, because if you try to make it half and half, television and film, you're just going to confuse the audience. Movies, so everyone can kind of get a feel of the character, and then if you have more stories to tell, Then you go to television route. Coming in at number one, number uno, Halo. This is the one movie that everyone would like. Now, they've already made two low-budget movies, but I'm talking about a full live action version of Halo. This is like the perfect video game because men play the video game, women play the video game, kids play the video game, and everyone loves the story. A genetic engineered super soldier from cloning who is among human beings. He's in outer space, and you can take the technology. Like, it wouldn't be hard to make this movie. Movies like Aliens, Doom, mixed in with what's a good war movie? Any war movie in general. You mix that in, and you've got Halo. The idea that the military could create a genetic enhanced super soldier would actually be very interesting. You could take the elements from Captain America, First Avenger, and you can make it where there's an army of genetic enhanced super soldiers. John 117, Master Chief, the ultimate badass, the one guy that can be antisocial and get the girl and kick ass. That would be the perfect superhero story. And you could actually make 3 live action films of his character. And you can have it where it shows that he realizes he has all these abilities. People are jealous of him. People are envious. They don't like that he has all these physical enhancements. And he realizes that. But he becomes the hero at the end of that story. Part 2 is where he gets separated from the group and he has to fight aliens by himself. So you could kind of take Captain America meets Riddick. Think about it. Riddick's in outer space, right? Most of all the Riddick stories are on other alien worlds, right? And he is also enhanced. Captain America is enhanced. So it's like you're taking Captain America into outer space meets Riddick. You could do that with the technology. So the second movie is he's on a planet by himself, fighting aliens by himself with super advanced weapon technology. The third movie could be like a rescue story, where now they have to come rescue him. And when he comes back, he's being court-martialed or whatever. He finds out the system that he protects doesn't no longer need his services or required. And that could set up like another version of Captain America Civil War, where it's Halo Civil War. I know it's like a big ripoff, but fans would accept the title. That's where you would make a fourth film. Or if not necessarily a fourth film, then you can kind of say, well, we made you 3 movies, a TV series. Because there's so much history with the story of Halo, you could do that. You could take the story of him having to rescue the girl. So the third movie could be Rescue. Like the first half, it's coming to rescue him. Because he's the main character. Only to find out he's been replaced by another genetic enhanced super soldier. And in the second half is he's saving a girl that in secrecy he has a crush on and that he's in love with. And then the rest of that plot is he finds out he's now fighting the very same system he swore to protect. All of that could be in the third movie. And then if you had to make a fourth film, it would just be him be on the run as a fugitive where his group decides to follow him. And now it's his group versus the system. So you could actually break this off into 3, how they did Hunger Games, where Hunger Games just had 3 movies, and they took the third movie and they made it into 2 parts. You could do that with Halo and end up with 4 films. Now, the reason why I ain't brought in any actors of who could play these characters is because when you start naming off actors who could play Snake or Master Chief, a lot of people get angry and upset, so we didn't name any actors because we just want to talk about how these concepts would get made into movies or television shows. And depending on how well received this is, we could come back and make a second one, but animes that could be made into movies and television shows. So next time, peace.